Hi, welcome to yet another episode of Socio Ideologies with Ruku, best known as Socio Ideo with Ruku, a series that aims to prove how non-reality truly fits an ideology. I am your host, Ruku Miti, and this is a Girls of Voices production. In today's show, we're going to be discussing the topic emotional abuse. When we talk about emotional abuse, it is a form of abuse that is usually ignored because the moment we talk about abuse, people tend to think of physical abuse. Emotional abuse is a form of abuse that is psychological, hence it's usually called psychological abuse. It may be verbal, constant criticism, manipulation, intimidation, and it's usually a result of power imbalance in relationships. Now, let's take a moment to look at the various ways in which emotional abuse can occur. I've already mentioned manipulation, I've already mentioned intimidation, but there's also things like constant criticism. Constant criticism, some may say criticism, and within our culture believe that criticism is what builds an individual, but there's difference between constructive criticism and simply criticism. There are situations where whatever I do is wrong, and whatever I do, be it maybe my mother, she has to say something negative about it. There's never something, I could never do something right. There's never something positive said about my actions. That is constant criticism that can result in, that can be emotional abuse. Defamation, believe it or not. Defamation of character, yes, it is a form of emotional abuse. This is why even law allows us to sue when one defames me. Bullying is also a form of emotional abuse. As much as you now find that these are things that we know that are wrong within society, these are actions that we're always complaining about, yet when it comes to believing that emotional abuse exists, we then cancel it out. Another reason why all those ideologies surrounding emotional abuse still exist within our societies is because we cannot get away from emotional abuse. So society has taught us to laugh it off and relieve ourselves of the tension by laughing it off or by living with it. Simply because maybe the person who's emotionally abusing me is my husband, my sister, my mother, my father, and I have to live with them on a day-to-day basis. It means that now I have to come up with ways and solutions to get away from it. So instead of me getting away from it or me trying to actually address it as emotional abuse, I come up with little tactics or ways to make it not so painful anymore. So maybe it's constant criticism or verbal abuse. I tell myself when they're verbally abusing me, I sing a song in my head. That way I don't listen to what they're saying. Society has also taught us to keep emotional abuse like this skeleton that we should hide in our closets and never let it come out. So the moment I close this skeleton of emotional abuse within my closet, I don't let it come out because I am afraid of the judgment I'm going to get. I'm afraid of what it's going to cause. So I tell myself, as long as there's no physical evidence, as long as I'm not being hurt physically, I might as well bottle it up and keep it in. I might as well hide it in my closet and never let it come out. Earlier on, I said there is evidence of emotional abuse. This evidence, we could also call it effects of emotional abuse. So let's start off with depression. By depression, I am talking about chronic depression, where I slide into depression, in and out of depression. I am constantly depressed, or one moment I'm depressed, the next I'm all happy and jovial, the next I'm depressed, the next I'm good again, the next I'm depressed, I'm trying to take my life. And this kind of chronic depression is usually a result of unaddressed emotional abuse. Another effect of emotional abuse is post-traumatic disorder. By post-traumatic disorder, I'm talking about the failure to recover after witnessing a terrifying situation. So this is the moment one also becomes anxious about the environment, or one simply becomes jumpy. Another effect of emotional abuse is actually panic attacks. And the problem now with panic attacks is that society has this ideology which says panic attacks is rich people's thing, or maybe, I don't mean to be racist, but it's a white people's thing. But the moment you are African and you say, I'm having a panic attack, people look at you funny, like, are you sure? Why are you trying to be bougie for nothing? But okay, so talking of panic attacks, back to the topic of the day. So panic attacks are simply those overwhelming feelings that are a result of acute, what can I say, acute anxiety. So when anxiety exceeds 100% level of anxiety, it may turn into this panic attack where maybe I cannot breathe properly, I cannot stand still. These are all panic attacks. Anyway, moving on to another effect of emotional abuse, there is substance abuse. Substance abuse is usually a result of emotional abuse. Now, because emotionally I'm bruised, I decide to resort maybe to alcoholism, to drug abuse, because I believe it's better for me to forget what's going on. And, if I'm not in my normal state, if I have some form of drug helping me out, controlling my behavior, controlling what I'm thinking about, then I'm going to be happy, and all those emotional bruises will maybe drown in alcohol. That's what people usually think. And that's what users of substances due to emotional abuse usually say about emotional abuse.